Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight. This is the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will enjoy. If you like the same kind of music as me, it's always a fun way to promote new artists and to talk about bands that have really touched and inspired me, and to just give you guys recommendations to go check out. You know, the whole point of the episode is for me to describe and talk about an album, and if it sounds interesting to you based on the description, for you guys to go check it out, support the artists, and hopefully enjoy it and have a new cool record to add to your collection however you listen to music. So today I have The Fierce and the Dead and their album News from the Invisible World. This is a band that was founded in London in 2010. They came about from an improvised recording experiment that was initially intended for guitarist Matt Stevens' second solo album, but it grew legs and arms and evolved into its own animal with Kevin Feasey on bass and Stuart Marshall on drums. They're traditionally have been an instrumental band for all of this time, doing a bit of a harder edged rock sound, but for this album they've decided to add a vocalist to the group. Actually not really add a vocalist, but to have one of their current members do vocals on the album. Kev Feasey is adding vocals onto this record to give it a whole new dimension, and it really adds another texture to the group that I think really puts them into another level and has been a lot of fun to listen to and to really explore. So the addition of vocals, it just feels like they're meant to be there. They're very natural and well done, and it's almost makes me wonder why they haven't had vocals in the past. I just think it brings another layer to their already dense and epic sound. This album, you get a lot of fuzzy hard rock sounds, a lot of textures and flavors though to add a variety to the music. That's what gives them their progressive label to me, is that they have sections that can even lean towards jazz or pop vibes or alt indie rock type stuff. And it just really creates a cool, fascinating stew of music that just is really fun to listen to. And each track is very independent and has its own style and feel to it, but they really work all well together at the same time. So it's a cool blend of things going on here that just leads to a really fantastic record. The album starts with, accurately enough, the start, which begins with some 80s style synth and bright vocals. The key playing adds an almost foreboding feeling underneath the vocals. The drums slowly come into the mix as the chanting vocals get more intense, and we get this burst and explosion of a heavy rock sound towards the end of the track. Just a really explosive and interesting opening track to really get your juices flowing and ready for what's coming up in the track listing. Shake the Jar is fuzzy grunge style hard rock, adding a dose of energy to the proceedings. There's vocal sections that are a bit more psyche and dreamy, with an undertone that gives a great variety to the heavier, harder parts of the track. Towards the end, a rumbling, fuzzy bass line takes center stage with some laid-back vocals that keep building layers, adding a guitar, then more vocals, fading away into an ethereal feel before we get back into that heavy main section of the track. So a really cool explosive track to get you going and to lead into Golden Thread, which gives you more hard rock, head-banging riffs to begin. Great stop and start rock moment before it settles into a more psych-inspired feel, going back to that heavy tinged metal style as well, really giving me the vibe of like a more metallic Porcupine Tree style. Really cool, and a little bit of a 90s indie rock groove as well. Then we get into Photogenic Love, which has a cool groove to it and adds a bit more of a poppy flavor to the proceedings. Heavy guitars in the chorus give it more of an edge, but the juxtaposition between this more poppy style to the intense heaviness is just really captivating and interesting and keeps a lot of variety on display. Wonderful is a great track that comes next, one of my favorites on the album, starting with a strong beat and fuzzy bass work, getting those interesting bright sounds before a grooving fuzzy guitar takes center stage with some understated vocals in the backing. Some great brass accents really add an element to this track, a great layer of sound, and it's just a really unique, great track to highlight in the middle of this track listing. Really beautiful. Non-Player is an interesting track with a shuffling drum pattern and an interesting guitar figure, a little bit of a jazz inflection at points in this one. Almost reminds me of some Radiohead music. Like I said, there's a bit of an indie rock vibe to a lot of this music. There's a dreamy psych-tinged flavor into the chorus, Really cool section in the middle with a harder edge flavor and some quirky, darker melodies. I like how they allow a lot of space into this piece, and the addition of a saxophone in the backing really adds a cool, hazy feel to it. Really interesting track, another good one to listen to here. What a Time to Be Alive is another hard-hitting song with some hard-hitting riffs to begin with, but it gets a bit spacier with some cool keyboard sounds, then back into that heavy riffing. The midsection has some great hard-hitting fuzzed-out guitar, making room for some more ambient sounds with low piano and space rock vibes before we get to that hard-hitting conclusion. This one is more in the instrumental vein of what they've done before this album, so it harkens back to their classic sound. Then we get into the final track of the album, Nostalgia Now, where vocals take center stage with a lighter, grunge-inspired guitar in the background. We get some piano and heartfelt, emotional vocals, almost an electronica feel in the backing drum and bass, but a pretty arrangement of vocal harmonies over the piano. A beautiful piece. There's a sound of cello in the backing to add another layer to this heartfelt ballad, but then they add their typical heavy fuzz to the end of the track, which gives it a darker weight and really ends on an interesting, cool note. So really great smattering of tracks. It's a very easily digestible album. It's about 42 minutes long. Each track just hits with a good punch and has its own identity, but it all flows together as a cohesive piece. There's a lot of variety, as I mentioned. There's this hard rocking foundation. You know, they don't shy away from hard hitting riffs and fuzzy sounding grungy guitars and things like that, but they add a lot of variety to make it not too overwhelming. They add some jazzy inflections, they add some indie rock flavor, they add a little bit of a pop element to certain tracks to continually shake it up and make it interesting and really effective to listen to. So really excited about the album. It's really been fun to explore. Wish I could have got around to it earlier because this album's been out a little while, for quite a few weeks at this point, but I definitely had to talk about it because it's such a fun one to listen to and to enjoy, and I think you guys will love it as well. So highly recommended for you out there if you enjoy this style of prog, a little bit of a indie rock, harder edged, grungy type sound, but definite prog inflections all the way throughout with a lot of cool variety and some great vocals to add a new spice to their already great instrumental palette. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully you'll check out the album, and hopefully you'll continue checking out my reviews and see what I've got coming up soon. There's a lot of great album spotlights to come this year. A lot of albums I'm really excited to get into. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye everybody!